Welcome, everyone. My name is Lizelle May Foss, and I'm a member of the HEAL Data Stewardship Group. Thank you all for joining us today for the second installment in our Fresh Fair tutorial series, Getting Your Data Ready to Share. Today's tutorial will guide you on preparing your data once your study has completed data collection. Our tutorial session includes a presentation by Kira Bradford, who will discuss navigating data sharing challenges and compliance, the significance of data sharing for future and community benefits, and a call to action on submitting data with actionable steps and resources. After Kira's presentation, we will have 2 breakout rooms where you can dive into data sharing questions with subject matter experts. This tutorial will conclude after the breakout sessions. And please note that the first part of the tutorial is being recorded and will be shared with all registrants. And next slide. And next slide, please. As I mentioned, we are joined by Kira Bradford. Kira Bradford, PhD, is a scientific computing principal investigator at RTI International. She works at the intersection of cloud-based cyber infrastructure development and scientific research. Kira is also a co-lead of the data management and consultancy group for the NIH HEAL Data Stewardship. Her background in team science, along with her professional and research experiences, makes her a leader in multidisciplinary and multi-institutional projects. Her work focuses on accelerating research by enabling access to computational cloud-based resources. And so at this time, I will pass the presentation over to Kira. Next slide, please.
Hey folks, thanks for the intro, Lizelle. So just to go over the objectives for today's tutorial. So there are 2 primary objectives that we're going to be discussing. First, how to navigate data sharing compliance and challenges, and then also to emphasize the importance and benefits of data sharing. So within navigating data sharing compliance, I'll be briefly going over the NIH data sharing policy requirements and reminding you of what they stipulate. And then later on during our breakout sessions, we can discuss a little bit more about understanding our challenges that we're facing in data sharing and getting our data sets ready to deposit in repositories. For emphasizing the importance of benefits in data sharing, I'll highlight some of those. And then during the breakout session again, we will ask you all to please consider submitting your data to repositories, and we'll provide you actionable next steps and resources. Next slide, please. Great. So this probably isn't a surprise to anyone, but just for leveling the playing field, the NIH Data Management and Sharing Policy was effective as of January 25th, 2023. And so the aim of this data management and sharing policy was to enhance biomedical research by promoting the sharing of scientific data. And so within this particular policy, there are 3 main requirements. So investigators and institutions must plan and budget for data management and sharing. A data management and sharing plan must be submitted with your application. And then your data management and sharing plan, with whatever you put in there, you need to maintain compliance with whatever is in your stated data management and sharing plan. So there are additional guidelines depending on which institute or center you are funded under, but these are the 3 main requirements. As the HEAL Data Stewardship Group, we acknowledge that not all of this is clear-cut, and you may need additional support. Next slide. And you may be wondering, what is the point of following the data management and sharing policy, other than it's a requirement? So there are a couple of main benefits, and I'm just going to come to you as a scientific researcher. When I'm going to share a brief story. When I was getting my graduate degree, I remember having a meeting with my boss and sharing with her some of the data and some of the findings I had generated. She looked at me with a spark in her eye, and she turned around, went into her filing cabinet, and pulled out a dusty manuscript that was related to my research. Y'all, That is what we call dark data, and that's what we're trying to go away from. The HEAL initiative has been funded since fiscal year 2019 and has obligated over $2.5 billion towards this initiative. Many of you are in this program because you have either personal experience or you just care about the results of your research being meaningful and impactful. So the importance of data sharing are as follows. We want to maximize the data utility. That $2.5 billion is not only to fund the data being generated, and it's not only to fund the findings of that research, but it is also with the aim and the hope that we can make that data reusable for secondary analysis. We also want to promote transparency and accountability. We are working within the HEAL initiative on trying to understand and perhaps treat opioid use disorder as well as chronic pain management. It is paramount that we are completely transparent in how the data is generated and how our findings impact the individual. And it is important that we remain accountable for what our research findings show. And then finally, we want to encourage collaborative opportunities. So one of the things that we have noticed throughout the lifetime of the HEAL initiative is that there are likely intersections between chronic pain and opioid use disorder. And one of the aims of the HEAL initiative, in addition to funding the research and create meaningful impact to the communities, is also to figure out where are those intersections between opioid use disorder and chronic pain? Can we take advantage of treatments that are successful for one to treat the other? And how can we enable that? And that is what we're hoping will happen as a result of data sharing. You will form these collaborations, and you will have opportunities to discover those. Next slide. So how to ensure data is fair before sharing. So FAIR, in case you haven't heard one of our webinars before, stands for findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And it is one of NIH's favorite acronyms right now. And the reason why is that FAIR data means that it is sustainable, meaning it is reusable. We can find it again, we can eventually use it for secondary research. And that is one of the goals of the HEAL initiative. So in order to ensure your data is fair, there are these bulleted points that you need to think about as you are generating your data and getting ready to deposit your data into a repository. So first is metadata and documentation. It is crucial that we have comprehensive metadata and documentation associated with your data. So you can imagine a scenario where you are a PI leading a research lab. You had a postdoc that left. So you're like, this is fine. The postdoc was very good at generating results and you want to give the project to someone else. Guess what? Postdoc didn't provide very good metadata. They didn't give you any context for how they conducted their experiments. You know they followed the main protocol, but you also know they made modifications to the protocol. And if those modifications aren't kept anywhere, then you have to start from scratch trying to reproduce their results. So providing metadata and documentation is not only to help make sure your data is fair, but it also helps you running your lab and keeping consistency across all of your experiments. The next thing we want to emphasize is standardizing data formats. Many of you, depending on what type of data you're generating, are already following best practices. But we want to ensure that for those of you who are not already aware, there are standardized, widely used data formats that are associated with many different data types. And of course, if you have questions about what those are, this is what we're here for. The HEAL Data Stewardship Group, as well as the HEAL platform, can provide you information on all of these bulleted points. The third thing we wanted to emphasize for making your data fair is persistent identifiers. So we want to ensure that once your data is completed, your study is completed, all information associated with that study, including who the PIs were, what the research was about, what data was generated, and where it ended up, is all easily findable, hence the F part in FAIR. And many of the repositories generate these unique identifiers for your research, which is one of the reasons why the last bulleted points is to choose the data repository. But before I get to that, we want to talk a little bit about access and usage policies. We understand that within the HEAL initiative, there are many studies that focus on understanding and working with stigmatized populations. And so there are going to be clear data use agreements that need to be established before anyone can access those data. But it also needs to be clear what that data use agreement is, so that investigators who want to take a look at that research or use it in future findings are well aware of what stipulations may be in place before they start analyzing the data. And then finally, depositing data into an appropriate repository. The HEAL Data Stewardship Group spent our first year and a half analyzing and vetting over hundreds of repositories based off of the HEAL data landscape. Within the HEAL landscape, we know that there are over 25 different types of data being generated across 8 different species. And we acknowledge that one repository does not fit all data. Therefore, as part of our vetting process, we narrowed down to 26, 27 or so repository that best fits your data. And we provide you that list as part of our resources to help guide you into choosing a repository that not only best fits your data, but could also offer benefits like curation for that specific data type. Next slide, please. So with that very brief overview, I'm going to hand this over to my colleague Lizelle, and I look forward to seeing you all in the breakout sessions.
Thank you again, Kira, for providing a fantastic overview of navigating data sharing challenges and compliance. Here are some key takeaways from today's session. Regarding the NIH data management and sharing policy requirements and benefits, this was effective January 25th of 2023, mandating the planning, budgeting, and submission of a data management and sharing plan. And it also enhances research efficiency, transparency, accountability, and fosters collaborative opportunities. Regarding the best practices for data sharing, the use of comprehensive metadata, standardized formats, and persistent identifiers, as well as ensuring clear access policies and deposit data in recognized, fair, compliant repositories. And we want to remind you all that the HEAL data ecosystem have support teams. The HEAL platform team and the HEAL stewards are here to help you meet your HEAL data ecosystem data sharing requirements. We hope that you will reach out to the HEAL stewards and the HEAL platform team for questions or support as you embark on your FAIR journey to maximize the value of HEAL data. In addition to the recording of today's presentation, we will email you a list of resources, and this includes the slide deck. And you can find a link to our Slack channel and the Connect With Us form in the chat. So now let's move on to our next slide, where we will provide a brief description of how to utilize the EasyRetro board, which we will be diving into during the breakout rooms. Okay, so we will shortly stop the recording and transition into breakout rooms. So in this slide, please refer to the EasyRetro board located in the chat provided by Julie to see the types of questions that will be answered in each breakout room. And here's a brief guide on how to use the EasyRetro board. We encourage you to not be shy and engage in the upvoting and adding on ideas. So how can you do that? You can add ideas by clicking on the plus sign in the relevant column, depending on which breakout room that you decide to go into. And I'll go over that in the next slide. But whenever you add a new idea, it will appear as a card for other users to upvote or comment on. And you can also look through the already pre-populated ideas and upvote it using the thumbs up button. And you can also comment on an idea using the quote bubble icon. Next slide. So in a moment, we will open the breakout rooms and you'll be able to select which breakout room you'd like to attend. And if you have any issues moving to a room, please put your desired room in the chat, and Chelsea Davis will ensure that you get there. Once in the breakout room, there will be a facilitator that will provide more info on how the breakout rooms will function, And if at any point you'd like to switch breakout rooms, you can always come back to the main room and we can assist in moving you. And please note that once we break into breakout rooms, we will not be returning to the main room, and the tutorial will conclude from the breakout rooms. Without further ado, you have two options. We have room A, which is designed for investigators with awards ending this year or next year, and those with publications or publications under review that have underlying data. And this room will focus on data quality, completeness, final data cleaning, validation, and preparation for final data submission. And then we also have room B, which is tailored for newly awarded investigators. And this room will provide an orientation to the HEAL data ecosystem. This room will cover HEAL's data sharing policies, the FAIR principles, and guidance on developing a robust data management plans. And this room will also provide information on HEAL common data elements, and will introduce various tools and resources within the HEAL data ecosystem. And so now, with that, we will open up the breakout rooms, and we will see you all in the rooms that you select.